IMSA fans, we have our friend Gunnar Jeannette, AO Racing Team. Do we call you team principal? The boss? What do we call you?
Any of the above works.
Okay.
I've had plenty of titles.
All right. A Jeannette family tradition. We're here with everyone's favorite race car, the amazing Rexy. And we're not just here to talk about your beautiful car, but also, Gunnar, to celebrate in this tech tour Porsche, a brand that I think you might have been born with Porsche as your middle name, knowing win now class at Le Mans here last weekend to celebrate that, plus your couple of victories on the trot and leading the championship. So for our newest tech tour, we wanted to dive into the newest version of the Porsche 911 GT3 R. Tell us about this car, Gunnar. We're going to look under the hoods. I don't believe we're going to find a motor up here. That hasn't happened yet, but among the most unique architectures of any car in the field.
Yeah, absolutely. So Porsche obviously has a very long history with the 911 of being rear-engined. This car is still rear-engine. For those of you that are diehard IMSA fans, you'll remember that the GTE version, the RSR of these cars, actually went to mid-engine. I was very fortunate to get the opportunity to drive that car, and very special. But this is still very much customer racing. Porsche races what they sell, and so the 911's engine comes in the back, and that's the way we race it. It's got a 4.2 liter flat 12. Flat 6.
Breaking news! The new flat 12 Porsche. I love it.
No
wonder this thing's so fast, Jeanette.
Yeah, and sounds good. It's got an extra good roar. But yeah,
flat 6 though
is a flat 6.
Everything about Porsche, everything about the life and sound of a Porsche. We're going to look under the hood a little bit. We're going to look inside the cockpit. While we have this here, we'll start at the rear suspension and move to the front. Used to be a case of McPherson's struts up front, gone away from that years ago, as you told me before we started filming. And this is as modern a suspension as you will find. Tell folks about handling wise, because that's one thing Porsches are just known for, immense handling capabilities.
Yeah, so Porsche's done a lot with this model generation of the 992 in trying to get their weight distribution a little bit more forward.
Yeah.
So even inboard of the suspension, they've done lots of things to push the engine mass and the gearbox as far forward as they can. They've actually sort of put it at a little bit of a cant, an angle, to be able to get more diffuser space.
Tail up, basically, in the motor.
Exactly. But yeah, you see in there from a suspension and brake standpoint, it's all relatively sort of quote-unquote standard racing stuff. A lot of it did derive from the RSR generations.
Yeah. Double wishbone, if we look up front here, double wishbone with the damper set in between those A-arms, the anti-roll bar linkage there, the black one with the silver rod on top. I mean, this is all cutting edge as you can get in a GT car.
Yeah, basically, but again, it is also customer racing, and the rules with homologation and all that stuff, you know, it has to be applicable for many tire manufacturers in many series. Things have to be adjustable relatively quickly. We actually use the anti-roll bars during pit stops in races as tuning tools. So it's important to be able to get in there and adjust that quickly depending on race conditions, because during a 24-hour race, what you want at the night isn't necessarily what you want in the heat of the day.
Yeah. Let's look at something that it's not technical, but I love, and I would imagine folks love as well. The most popular car in IMSA, as we have mentioned, the addition of the Hot Wheels logo here. I don't even want to ask. I'm guessing you've sold 11 billion of those.
Well, no, the Hot Wheels aren't out yet. So
no?
we're getting 11 billion questions
Pre-orders
of when the Hot
maybe.
Wheels are going to be out. But yeah, our partnership with Hot Wheels is very exciting. They're going to be doing both Rexy and Rexy's sister Roxy as Hot Wheels toys, which are going to be launching in August.
Also knowing that we have 4th of July not too far away. We also have some nice additions here as well.
Yeah, you know,
the American flag.
We like to think of our dinosaur and dragon being patriotic. So yeah, Rexy will be holding on to a couple of small flags in his small little hands.
I love it. I love it. So Gunnar, we have the third and uncredited co-driver here with Rexy lovingly shown on the side impact protection panel. But the cockpit of this 911 GT3 R. It is loaded with purpose and intent. Tell us about what we're looking at.
Yeah, modern day race cars, there's more buttons and switches and dials and stuff than you know what to do with. In this generation, Porsche and Cosworth came out with this really, really big dash screen. So you've got lots of information on there that luckily is adjustable in brightness, because in the middle of the night you don't want that stuff ruining your night vision. Also, some cool things that we have that are particularly helpful is we also have lockup and traction control lights. So if you see to the left and the right of the dash, there are light modules in there that let you know how much TC intervention you're getting. And from a lockup perspective, if you have front or rear lockup, so again, you can dial all those switches and get them into the right place. We have to be able to get in and out of the car for driver changes, ideally in under 20 seconds.
If you look at Seb Priaulx, who is not blessed with exceptional verticality, yet his teammate Lauren Heinrich certainly,
right.
If we look at combos, a taller and shorter combo, Porsche, like many other manufacturers, makes both the seat, steering wheel. Tell folks about how you can customize the location driver by driver.
Yeah, so for this car, and I think most GT3 cars now, because of the crash testing, they've gone for a fixed seat. So the seat position is always the same, it's not adjustable, which means that you end up doing inserts, and then you have adjustable pedals.
Yep.
And that's one, good for safety, and two, it's also good for weight distribution, because you don't have a driver that is moving their position one versus the other.
You move the tools to them.
Yeah, exactly. But then to that point, you know, the seat insert, the seat belts, all of that stuff, it has to be very finely tuned to be able to get in and out of the car in ideally 15 seconds or less. So there's a lot of choreography that goes into that, and the placement of all of the bungees and everything is so critical for those driver changes.
You either have a hyperdrive motor up front, or we do not have internal combustion happening. Kidding aside, to make sure from a balance standpoint, which we've spoken about suspension-wise, the placement of items within the car, very critical with Porsche's decisions, and for many, many, many years, we have a fuel cell positioned up front. Tell folks about the packaging. Also, we have this cover here, but this is what is taken off before the session and flows air through the radiator and such. But tell folks about the packaging here and how this works to make an excellent race car.
Well, first, this here is very important. For you diehard IMSA fans who will recall, I believe it was the
Long Beach.
Yeah, the Long Beach race, where I forget it was the
Corvette
race,
Corvette racing.
But somebody lost a wheel nut. It rolled down pit lane, jumped in through the radiator exit, and punctured the radiator. So that's a very quickly turns into a race-ending event. So we always make sure that we protect that radiator at all times.
Sometimes you get to a racetrack in the paddock and there's just raining wheel nuts. I mean, you got to protect yourself.
Yeah. But yeah, then past that, obviously the fuel cell is up front in this car, since we have the engine in the back. It is very, very key part of the weight distribution of the car, and you always have to keep that in mind, that from full tanks to light tanks, there's going to be a balance shift. Particularly in cars that are so aero sensitive, the closer you get to the splitter to the ground, the better it works. So you start taking a couple 100 pounds off of that splitter and get it up in the air a little bit, and now all of a sudden you actually have less front downforce. So it's something that you just have to pay attention through the weekend in terms of setup and know how to handle it in the race.
You know, there's another interesting thing I see with many of the Porsche 911 GT3 R teams, knowing that refueling going through the Buckeye, unlike pretty much every other car where it's on the side and someone can just walk up and plug right in, most Porsche teams have to be intentional in who they choose to do that. They either need to be tall to be able to reach and do that, or shorter to be able to jump up and basically kneel down on the front of the car to plug in. That's a decision.
Yeah. Older generations of the car didn't have it offset to the side like that. It was more in the center. So you would see a lot of times then the people actually jumping on the hood. This style, and especially because at IMSA we do tires at the same time as fuel, it's pretty crucial that you get somebody who's tall and has a good reach, because they don't want to be standing directly over the wheel during the tire change. So he ends up sort of standing in this sort of front quarter area, and then the wheel changers are running around the back side of them. Again, talking about choreography and just making sure that you have the right people for the right job.
Gunnar, if this was an old episode of MTV Cribs, we would say this is where the magic happens.
Here with Rexy, we like to say this is where the RAR happens.
Hey,
Marshall.
Even better. Sorry, I missed that production note, but this is, again, as Porsche gets, with the proverbial sting in the tail, all that beautiful flat. We're going to go flat 12, by the way, from now on. 4.2 liter flat 6. Tell us about this motor. It is something that the concept has been around forever. Usually you say, well, you got to run out of ideas at some point. Never. That's not the case. Porsche's always finding horsepower, torque, reliability, weight savings. Tell folks about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that you notice when you take the deck lid off is how pushed forward everything is. And again, that gets back to the weight distribution, the evolving over the years, trying to push that big mass into the center of the car as much as possible.
It's almost like a backpack.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Cinch that thing down. So this engine is one from Porsche Motorsport North America, our partners here. So the cars always come built from Germany, and then once we get to racing them here in America, Porsche Motorsport North America services them for us. But yeah, just talking about some of the evolution of this engine apart from the positioning. It's obviously up to 4.2 liters, which is a little bit larger than the road cars. Just going for that torque. When we're racing against plenty of V8 turbocharged cars and cars with much higher displacement,
torque monsters.
We're trying to get all the torque we can out of this, and so every little bit of displacement helps. Also, certain things like evolving into direct injection, which goes way back to the Audi days at Le Mans.
Thousands and thousands of PSI.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, and then just some other stuff. You can see the wing being mounted in here. We can change that relatively quickly. So if you do have damage in an endurance race, the whole wing assembly can come off. We've got our rear view camera radar system here done by Bosch, which obviously helps all the guys sort of know who's behind them when and how fast they're coming.
My favorite part, the trumpets of glory right here.
Yeah, and for as loud as it is and as good as it sounds, there is still a muffler in there. I would love to hear what this thing sounded like without any muffler and sound attenuation.
Did I just hear that we need to do a track day without that? I think I did,
yeah.
Gunnar.
Well, I think for anybody that has seen the Porsche GT3 R Rennsport, that is like the ultimate no rules track day car evolution of this. And I was actually just talking with Andy Singer at Le Mans, Norbert Singer's son, who's leads the development and one of the most important people on this car. And he had a lot to play in that Rennsport version, so I know he had a fun time with that.
Another thing here too, which is just a racing-minded thing, you're crashing over curbs, you're passing, sometimes contact happens, need for things to be strong and stable, so we have these rear wing mounts, but we also have these dedicated cross braces that are made to keep everything as rigid as possible, because obviously you want stable aerodynamics, not kind of wobbly aero.
Yeah, and even with all of this, you get to Daytona and you look in the rearview mirror and the banking, and that wing is moving around way more than you're comfortable
wow.
with.
Make sure you follow along with us on IMSA's official YouTube channel and follow IMSA Racing on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and X. We're going to be doing some pretty cool stuff with some pretty cool people with some pretty cool race cars. Visit IMSA.com to hear the action called live and download the official IMSA app to follow the timing and scoring information as the sessions take place.